Hi, this is Sean. Welcome to the Alpha Secret. That's what I call this. Originally this was going to be a webinar, but the logistics of that were not very practical. If people from Australia, New Zealand, Europe, Asia, North America, South America, and somebody would have had to stay up late to do the call. Maybe we'll do it that way in the future and just, juggle the calendar. But for now, I just thought it was more appropriate to just do a video. I did a video last week on this, and it was really long and academic about brain waves and all kinds of stuff. And I thought, well, why don't I just cut right to the chase and get to the meaty parts of it. So that's what I'm doing here. This is a quick video to just give you the takeaways. What is it about this process that's worth noting, especially if you're into manifesting, if you know about the Silva method, or even if you don't. This is practical and valuable because we're going to talk about alpha brainwaves and manifesting. You might know my experience with it, with alpha brainwave manifesting. I was a skeptic, and I had read about quieting your brain to alpha brainwave levels and why this was valuable. And a man named Jose Silva had said if you want something to happen, then visualize it happening while you're at alpha brainwaves. So you quiet your brain to this deeper level of mind associated with relaxation and sort of a daydreaming state, and it's more likely to happen. I had known about visualization and programming for many years prior, but Jose Silva described the importance of going to alpha brainwaves as a way to help make things happen. In fact, he called his course, the Silva method, Biofeedback Without Machines. Here's a picture of Jose Silva wired up to a gizmo, a high-tech gizmo for the time, I think. These have gotten a little fancier now, these brainwave neurofeedback devices. Usually it's neurofeedback, what they're called now, instead of biofeedback. They look more like this, actually. EEG measures brain electrical activity. So there's kind of a world of difference there between these two. Anyway, so back to the topic of manifesting. I did this technique called the 100 to 1 technique. I still use it. I still teach it. And this was the test that I did to prove that there was any value whatsoever in alpha brainwave manifesting. And I did the 100 to 1 technique. You close your eyes, turn your eyeballs upward slightly. You mentally see and say the number 199, 98, 98, all the way to the number 1. At the count of 1, you picture your goal. This is really good. It's easy to do, it's easy to remember, and it's a great way to reach deep alpha and even theta, which is an even quieter brainwave level than alpha, associated with imagination, daydreaming. The downside, as I put here on this slide, is that it may cause you to go to sleep. I should say one of the upsides, the reason why I like to teach it is even if you are a long-time meditator, if you're a Silva grad who got out of the practice, whether you know about alpha or not, it's a foolproof way to get yourself to the deep alpha level. If you're brand new to it, it's very simple to do, and so that's why it's good for newcomers and even old-timers when it comes to meditation. Now the issue is, what does it do for manifesting? If you have a goal that you really want to have happen, well, my experience, this is going back, my goodness, almost 20 years now, that I first did this experiment, it proved to me that something was going on. And here, this is an important point I want to go over with you first. We'll get to all that alpha brainwave stuff, don't worry, but first let me give you an important point to consider. When I had done this, I was a skeptic, and so I really wanted to see that it worked and there was proof to it. I didn't want it to be psychology. I didn't want it to be proved, if you did alpha brainwave programming for a personal goal, that's Sigmund Freud, by the way, that's what that red X, that's not psychology. I didn't want it to be psychology at work that was making the goal happen. Everybody knows that if you picture a goal, if you picture success or picture the outcome you want, a wedding or a successful picture of yourself, that as in self-image psychology and psychocybernetics, even neurolinguistic programming, the whole idea of making a picture of yourself succeeding has an organizing quality to it. It's an organizing activity that gets all of the resources of your conscious and unconscious mind aimed in the direction of whatever you're picturing. If you make a picture of yourself succeeding at work, a lot of things go on in all the systems of your mind and body to organize you in the direction of that goal. I wanted to test and see if alpha brainwave programming would make a result happen separate from psychology. So you may know the story, just in case, quick overview. I asked a relative, I asked my brother, if you could have anything in the world, what would it be? Anything at all. Why did I pick someone else's goal? Because I wanted to prove that it wasn't psychology at work. It wasn't me somehow organizing my subtler resources in the direction of a goal. So my brother wanted to be in a movie. Long story short, he was picked to be in this film, even though he had no film experience. And a really weird coincidence. I had done the alpha programming once a day for 2 weeks, and he got a call out of the blue, and just a funny thing happened. After I had done my 2-week experiment, a few days after the 2 weeks ended is when I got a call saying, "Oh, you won't believe what happened to your brother." I didn't tell him. I didn't tell anybody I was doing this experiment. I wanted to see if there was any truth to it. Another thing that happened, my aunt, this was not long afterward, my Aunt Jane in Florida, she was visiting from New York, and she wanted to win the Florida lottery. And I taught her the 100-to-1 technique. And she did it and pictured herself winning the Florida lottery. She actually saw herself going to the office and filling out the paperwork in Hollywood, Florida, on Hollywood Boulevard in Hollywood, Florida. There was, I don't know if there still is, a lottery office where you redeem the winning ticket. So she did the alpha brainwave thing, 100-to-1. I mean, you have the steps. It's no big mystery here. You know how to do it. She did this technique, and she saw herself redeeming the winning ticket, and she won. And she said the thing that was most startling to her was the office looked like she imagined it, even though she had never physically been to that office before. Now just think about that for a second. Because Jose Silva says at this alpha brainwave level, there's no time or space. Everything is one. That when you're at the alpha brainwave level, you literally can travel across time and space. I didn't tell my aunt that, but she sort of demonstrated it, because she went across time and space to a physical place and described an office that she'd never physically been to, and that's where she went. Now, I know there are skeptics of that who might say, well, it's a trick of the brain, that when she went there, she suddenly created a memory of it having looked a certain way. Okay, fair enough. But when you start doing this over and over again, and you see this happen personally, and you hear these stories over and over again, it's just proof positive that alpha brainwave levels, there's something to it. These quieter alpha brainwave levels do have some real magic with them. The way to get to the alpha brainwave level, because it's associated with relaxation, has traditionally been via relaxation. So you do the 100-to-1 technique or some long relaxation exercise that's lifted completely from the field of hypnosis, because that was the association that, oh, well, the relaxed level of mind is alpha, so relax your way to alpha brainwave levels. The trap that exists is, and you might have encountered this, or maybe not, maybe you haven't explored this yet. If not, be sure to do it, is that you could fall asleep, because alpha is associated, when you first wake up in the morning, you're on your way from, you could think of alpha as a corridor from deeper brainwave levels up to more awake brainwave levels, and also from more awake brainwave levels down to deeper brainwave levels. So you can think of it like a hallway that you travel through mentally. And so alpha, learning to hang out there is a trick at first, because it's tempting to fall asleep. You know, when you're at that alpha brainwave level, it's so close to that deeper level of mind that you might doze off. And if you do a long process to relax your body, most people are stressed. And now, I mean, there's more reasons than ever if you're connected to media and news cycles. There's lots of stuff to be stressed about. And so the body that's constantly hypervigilant, well, if you do any sort of relaxation, it's tempting to fall asleep. So there's a sort of a built-in trap. If you want to explore doing things at alpha, but you do these relaxation processes to get to alpha, there's a chance that you'll go through the corridor and down into theta or even delta, which are deeper, very quiet brainwave levels associated with deep sleep or anesthesia or real total unconsciousness. And that's not useful, right? You can't direct your imagination if you're completely unconscious. So now, what's the point of this video? Why am I talking to you about this stuff? Well, there was a discovery of a neurofeedback expert. This is not him. This is just a stock picture of what neurofeedback is. Anyway, his name is Dr. Les Femi. And he made a discovery. He was trying to find a way to reliably get to alpha. And he was testing visualization and countdown protocols to relax. Again, lifted a lot from the world of hypnosis, but he also borrowed from just visualization and imagination techniques to quiet your mind and wake up your imagination. And he was getting really spotty results. And then he discovered, quite by chance really, that when he would focus his attention on space, or what he calls objectless imagery, that means you're trying to imagine something that's not physically imaginable, if imaginable is a word, that it produced perfect synchronous alpha brainwaves. And so he would say, and he tested this with a lot of people, and it's extraordinary, the benefits the people have reported from this, and that you can experience and sample yourself, that he would just say, can you imagine the distance between your eyes? And so the distance between your eyes is sort of an imaginable location, but there's nothing there particularly to think of. And so just that question, can you imagine the distance between your eyes? He explored other similar kinds of objectless imagery questions. Can you imagine the distance or the space between your left shoulder and the thumb on your right hand? And can you imagine the space inside your throat? And merely by asking these questions, just directing attention to spaces and connections of spaces in the body, he would get the person to create these perfect synchronous alpha brainwaves. That means your brain produces all the brainwaves all the time, but it was a preponderance of this one particular brainwave associated with this relaxed imagery, this relaxed imagination. But notice that he didn't have to do this protocol to get you to relax, to get his patients to relax, or get himself to relax. It was just the question itself. So even right now, if I asked you to, can you imagine the space between your heart and your spine? And you know that space exists in your body, but how do you think of it? And so your brain's trying to come up with an image, just lets go. And what Dr. Femi, the great discovery he made, was that attention tends to have a clutching quality to it. You want to think of something. In fact, a good way to think of it is peripheral vision versus foveal vision. If you're staring at something, let's say you're looking at something. So you're looking with your eyes, you're staring at something, and you're looking at an object. If you relax your gaze and let the periphery of your vision, your peripheral vision, then you expand your focus, you open your focus, and that has an effect on your brain waves. And it has a relaxing effect. And he was looking at, like Jose Silva actually, Jose Silva was originally exploring alpha brain waves because he wanted to help his children do well in school. It was information processing, that's what he was working on. Dr. Femi actually was looking at information processing in animals. How do they do it? Primates, how do they do information processing? And it was fortunate that he did, because he noticed that lots of animals do this thing where they just relax, where they just sort of doze. They're awake, but they're just sort of daydreamy, and their focus, their gaze relaxes. So can you imagine a cat? If you have a cat or a dog or an animal on the plains of Africa, I should have had a slide of that, that would have been helpful, will just sit there and relax, and through peripheral vision will be scanning the environment. And in a moment may have to get up and start running. Maybe a food source will appear, or maybe a predator will appear. But what happens is your body can go into this neutral mode that's deeply soothing, deeply relaxing, and associated with alpha brainwaves. And once it's at that level, if you need to move, boom, you can get up and get going. And very handy, very useful that this is so. How does this apply to manifesting? Right? I said that's the purpose of this. Well, when you have a problem, and you're thinking about it, a lot of people, if you notice, they do this. And it's funny also that people touch their head, sort of bringing energy to different locations in their head, face, brain. And that there's a clutching quality to your attention even if you're thinking of a goal. And so Dr. Femi also is exploring not just the distance in your body from one location to another, but then your thoughts themselves. That can you imagine when you're having a thought? How do you know when you're having a thought? And then can you imagine the space between your thoughts? This is a quick description of how it works. I just want to give you the overview, the broad brush. We can explore it finally in a moment. But what happens is, now not only the senses of your body, the locations of your body, that your attention is widened or your focus opens, an expansion of your focus to include more data, but then you apply that to the thoughts you have themselves. And again, you have the corresponding alpha brainwaves that go on, and then you notice your thoughts are sort of like the clouds that appear, and your awareness is the blue sky. And when you do that, well, now you can create alpha at will. And just by being there, just swimming in the waters of that experience of alpha, your body naturally resets itself. You get all the benefits of relaxation, all the benefits of this soothing, sort of like a massage to your system that you can relax. And that's where Dr. Femi leaves it. He gets to that point and says, isn't this nice? What a revelation. And he's producing miracles with this. My question, when I had learned this process and when I had learned about the methodology, is how can we use it to refine the process of manifesting? How can we use it to build on what Jose Silva had created so that you can do this process to open your awareness and reach alpha more reliably without doing the hypnotic techniques, without that long relaxation process that might trance you out or might put you to sleep, depending? How can we use the open focus methodology to manifest more efficiently so that you get what you want more easily because you're at alpha more easily? Notice the spaces in your body. Start with this. Don't start with the thoughts, but just go. Can you imagine the space between your eyes, the distance between your eyes? And can you imagine the distance from your right hip to your left hip? And you can randomly pick spots on your body and just imagine the space. Can you imagine the space between your right shoulder and your left ankle? And there's an area of space between the two, and you'll do your best to think of that, and then your attention can't grab onto anything. There's no particular item there to latch onto, and so it sort of lets go. It's like trying to grab onto a cloud, and you can't, and so you sort of let go, and then you notice that it's just blue sky behind those clouds. But explore that. Just test it out. Your mind doesn't easily imagine space, but it does easily imagine space between, in, and around known objects. So if it seems a little strange to do this within your body, you could literally right now, wherever you are, just notice the objects around you. And can you imagine the space between the objects? So the things that were in the foreground move to the background, and the space between the objects is now in the foreground of your awareness. And the space between the objects, that extends in all directions, literally to infinity. Can you imagine the space between the objects in the room where you are now, or the space where you are now? The possibilities here are far-reaching, that you can in any moment drop into a perfect alpha experience. And in that moment, when you can notice what was outside awareness or in the background of your awareness, and bring it into conscious awareness and the corresponding effects on your brainwaves, at that particular moment, let the thought come to mind of a goal, some cherished thing that you really do want to manifest. And just let that be there in consciousness while you're holding your awareness in this opened way. That's the promise here. That's the method that I want to ask you to explore, to invite you to explore. Yes, it's true, you'll get deep relaxation. You'll get all the benefits of this deep experience of alpha, all the benefits and soothing experiences to your system. But the question is, will it accelerate your results in making goals manifest in your world? So that's the invitation. I'm inviting you to explore this and test it out for yourself. Okay, thanks for listening, and thanks for exploring this.